Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from anthonymorganti.com, and this is episode 111 of Photo Critiques. And I'm sure most of you have heard I'm no longer accepting images for critique. If you haven't heard and you're wondering why, there'll be a link in the description of this video, and click on that. It'll take you to my website where I wrote a short blog post that explains why I'm not accepting the images anymore and what I'm going to be doing instead of critiques. Now, I do still have a lot of critiques to do. So I'll be doing them through February and into March. So if you enjoy these critiques, I'll still be doing them. And if you're wondering what I'm going to be doing instead of critiques, click that link and you'll find out. Now this episode 111, I'm pleased to critique the work of Paul Thomson. Now Paul sent me in like 40 images. So I cut it down to 12, Paul. I hope you don't mind, to make the critique not an hour long, so we're make it more manageable with time. So I didn't necessarily take your best 12. I took the 12 that I thought I could critique and help not only you but help other people too with their photography. And this first image I think is excellent. Now I consider this an art image. It's like a singular flower, the beautiful color. I love the black background. It puts all the emphasis on the flower. It's a really nice composition. It's really well done. It's a very nice shot. It was 1/6 of a second at f of 8, ISO 100, 190 millimeters. Now this next one, conversely, the focus is excellent. I like your composition of what you're trying to do, but whereas this one isn't as strong as the last picture is because the background is so busy on this one. This is 1/400th of a second at f of 8, ISO 100. Because it's f of 8, you have a lot more depth of field, and we have a busy background compared to this solid black background, which puts all the emphasis on the flower. So as a viewer, all my attention is on this flower. But on this one, it's muddied by having this complex, busy background. So when you're presented with something like this, I think you really have to get in tighter, and you really have to like pick up one flower maybe out of the bunch, and then use try to shoot it flat on, and use more of a wide open aperture so you have very little depth of field, and you hopefully could send the background into a bokeh of blurriness. So that's my suggestion is on a busy background when you're doing macros of flowers, try to isolate one of the flowers, use more of a wide open aperture, and hopefully you could blur out the background and it won't be as cluttered looking. It's a beautiful cityscape. I love the exposure. You did a great job. It was 1/60th of a second f of 8, ISO 1600, 18 millimeters. Its ISO is really high, in 1/60th of a second. Now, it just seems like the scene would be bright enough. I'm not sure why the ISO was so high at 1/60th of a second. It just seems like it would be a bright enough scene. But, I wasn't there, so I don't know. The only thing I could suggest, I like the composition, I like the way you have it framed. This would be a scene, though, that you would have to revisit because the sky isn't overly compelling. So this is one where you'd revisit this scene on different days. I like the way you have the time of day you are now. You kind of have this light, front lit, a little bit from the side of the city. So it's a nice kind of glow on the building. So it's really, I like the light. We just need a better sky. So if you're, live around here, you could come back and get this scene. Different days where you have a more interesting sky. Also, if you don't have one, bring a tripod so you could lower this ISO. If you could bring this ISO down to 100, you might have to use a considerably longer shutter speed, but that'll be okay. It'll really smooth out the water too, and you'll get some handsome reflections. So I would come back to this scene when you have better, more interesting sky. Bring a tripod. Use a longer exposure so you could smooth out the water and get some better reflections. This shot here, a couple things. The shadows here are a little distracting, and obviously there was probably I don't know, maybe the headlights of a car behind you are on, or maybe there's a building behind you with lights that are on. Either way, if you could turn those off and eliminate these shadows, that would improve this shot. Also, the dark parts of the shot are very, very dark. And I mentioned in previous critiques, if you're ever going to print these, this just comes out like just black ink. There's no detail there. So I would suggest, you could go in Lightroom and you could bring out the shadows. Now, if I had the raw file, I could bring it out even more. But you could see the difference there. We have detail now. There's the before and there's the after. And it really didn't adversely affect the sky. So you have a really nice looking sky. I would say just open up the shadows if possible. With the raw file, you could be even more effective. You could also use a targeted adjustment in Lightroom, which I cover in my Lightroom videos you might want to check out, where you could try to lighten up this part of the green and not this part of the green. I'm not going to go into it in this critique. Check out targeted adjustments in my Lightroom training videos, which are free on YouTube. But that's it. I would say try to do whatever you could do to get rid of these shadows and open up the shadows in the shot itself, so we have more detail in this dark part. It's an excellent shot. I think this is just a really, really nice shot. I like the composition. I like, very long, 181 seconds at f/16. Very well done. I think it's a really nice shot. Your perspective is a little high, which is fine. Many times we get down a little lower when we have these docks and piers to try to exaggerate the length of the pier. But I like what you did here. Very nice. This is a very nice shot too. Again, though, the shadows are really dark. As you can see, we have really, really dark shadows. So we got really little detail up in here and little detail here. Also, be careful of your clouds get black. We typically in our landscape photos don't want to, even in black and white landscape photos, we don't want the clouds to go all the way black. Dark gray, yes. All the way black, no. But if we could open up the shadows here a little bit, you could see we brought out a lot of detail here. So there's the before and there's the after. It kind of washed it out a little bit too, and we're lacking contrast now. But if this was the raw file, hopefully you are shooting raw, you'll have a lot more control over that, and you would be able to open up these shadows without adversely affecting the contrast like I did here. This is obviously a really small picture, but this is a very, very nice shot. Again, I know maybe it's your style, but the shadows are really, really dark. So again, if we go in and we just open up the shadows a little bit, just a little bit to give a little more detail, and we get some varying grades of gray here, so it gives a little more texture and depth to the shot. So there's before and there's after. So just that slight adjustment to open up those shadows a little bit. That's my recommendation, because as a landscape photographer, your goal really is to sell prints. So you want, these prints like this, you want this hanging in someone's living room. So you want to be conscious of the fact that anything that's really dark, when it prints, it's not going to look as good as it could. It's a great shot. I love the shot. I love the motion. When you have cars, bicycles, motorcycles, trains, buses, anything that's moving, you want to show the motion usually. And you did a really nice job with this. You also have the larger empty part of the frame in front of the bike rider, so they're riding into the larger empty part of the frame. If this edge was closer here, it wouldn't have looked balanced. Wouldn't have looked right. So you did a great job framing it. Nice job with the composition. It was 1/13 of a second at f/22, ISO 100. Now, very well done. I like this shot. Now this shot, you used 1/800th of a second. Now you can see these bike riders are going. Now you're shooting flat onto the bike riders, whereas this one they were coming more almost towards you in a way. But see how at 1/800th of a second it froze the tires. I mean, we could read writing on the tires here. So you froze the motion. Very, very little blur. So it's that frozen nanosecond of time, but it doesn't show the motion. It's like these guys are just like balanced here. In this case, now you might not want as much motion as you showed or you displayed in this image, but you want a little motion. You want these tires to be blurred. And usually somewhere around 1/250th to 1/125th of a second is my experience when you're photographing bicyclists. It'll show that motion of the tires, and if their legs are pumping too, their legs will be slightly blurry. But their torsos, usually that's fast enough to keep their torsos frozen. Now you do have to pan slightly when you do that. If you didn't pan, then there would be motion blur going, as they're moving forward. So you'd pan with them and do that. So that's my suggestion, why I took both these shots, because this one is just about a perfect shot right here. And then this one, because it's not really indicating any motion, if you were trying to sell this to a bicycling magazine, um, they wouldn't like it as much. They like to see the action shot, like the bicycles show like they're actually moving. This is a really, really nice shot. I like this. It's 45 seconds at f/16 ISO 100, 10 millimeters. This just a beautiful shot. I love the water. This is another one though. If you could revisit this scene and get it when you have a slightly more compelling sky, you do. It is nice as it is. There's some nice colors in here, and you do have some motion of the clouds because it was 45 seconds. But if there was just a little more clouds, it would really push the shot over the top. So if this is somewhere you could revisit, actually right near my house, there's a scene almost identical to this. It doesn't have the pine trees though, but it's almost identical to this. Even the rubble here I had to look twice when I saw this picture. I thought this was something near my house, but then I saw the pine trees. But my point is, hopefully this is near you. You could revisit it, and this is a nice scene to take a lot of different times a year. Different weather conditions and different processes, HDR, super long, ND filter type things where you use really long shutter speeds like you did here. Do it all different ways. It's a really nice shot though. This shot here is, I like the composition. In this one you have the shadows opened up nicely. I like how the shadows are opened up nicely. This is another one though, if you could revisit this. Two things. The light is coming from this direction, so all this part's in shadow. If you could come back here at a different time of day and get it so the light is hitting them flat front on, because you can see how like golden this side is and this side's in shadow. So if you had the golden light hitting it from this side, it would really make these stand out, these rock formations. So it would be a much stronger image. The second thing I wanted to mention is the sky. Again, if you could come back and get a more compelling sky, some, clouds, get the sun over here, something with a more compelling sky. And I should actually maybe add a third thing. There's a lot of different ways you could shoot this, and I would suggest you try it all different ways. If you're here on a windier day and you could really get these waves slapping into the rocks, I would use a fast shutter speed like you used, 1/400th of a second, and try to freeze it when you're getting the water slapping into the rocks, splashing, that white foam into the rock. So again, if you could come by on a little windier of a day and get it so that the waves really are slapping into these rocks, that would make it a more compelling image. Or conversely, if it's, like it is now, get an ND filter on there and use a really, really long exposure, and you'd get all that real white misty look that you had in previous shots like this. But it would actually be even more pronounced if you had the ND filter on it here. So there's a lot of different ways you could shoot this scene, and this is a really compelling scene if it's something you could revisit different times of the day, get different light, different skies. Hopefully you get different weather conditions. You get the sky different, kind of times. The wind, so you could get the waves, shoot them different ways, either blur them out with an ND filter or get them frozen when they're splashing into the rocks. And different processes. You could this a nice would be a nice HDR scene if you're into HDR. You could take some multiple exposures, use some photomatics or something like that to merge them for HDR. Black and white. I think it would be a compelling black and white image also. So something like I said, this is working the scene, but not all at once, like coming back here repeatedly and doing it all different weather conditions and times of day. This is a really nice shot. Again, I think this is near this. I think this opening, that's what I think is this right here. I like the foreground element you have here, which is these grasses in the foreground. It's really nice. The light is hitting these perfect. We could see the texture in the stone. Very, very nice. Very well done. The only thing is again the sky. It's got some nice color, but it's not really super compelling. So if you could revisit this scene and get a more compelling sky, and by chance, if there was ever a boat in the water and you could get the boat in here because we have this framing, we're looking into here and we really don't see anything. Or if the sun ever sets right in this area too, you could get that. So I mentioned in that, I think in my previous critique about framing, that it's a real strong um, artistic thing that we photographers can do is framing, and it helps us point the viewer to where we want them to look. And right now we're looking really at nothing, just the water, and the sky's a nice color. So if you could revisit this scene, hopefully something could be in here. If not, maybe you could even have a person down in here, even as tiny as they would be. If they would be in here, it would make the image more compelling. And of course, the sky. If you could get here when there's some clouds in the sky, it would make it a lot stronger of an image. And that's it. I'd like to thank Paul for sharing your work with us. I gotta say, especially your landscape shots, your framing, your compositions are perfect. I think you just need to be working those scenes at different times of the day or different weather conditions and things like that. But you're really a great landscape shooter. Very well done. And thank you for sharing your images with us. I'd like to thank everyone that watches all my videos. I really appreciate it. And if you have time, go over to my website, anthonymorganti.com. I got all kinds of photography stuff over there. And if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's it for now. I'll talk to you guys soon.